What up? Welcome to Homegrown Hustle, where local brilliance takes the center stage. I'm your host, Matt Eickman. Together, we're about to embark on an inspiring journey. Our community thrives on the wisdom of insightful leaders that are right here in our backyard. And we're bringing their expertise to your ears. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or simply seeking inspiration, this podcast is your guide. Join us every week in celebrating innovation, guidance, and the power to inspire greatness. Let's explore the stories that shape our local business landscape, and together, let's ignite the spark of excellence.
Thank both of you for coming here today. I really appreciate it. We've got Todd Rooker with Rooker Financial Consulting. Awesome mentor and become really close with my wife and I. Thank you so much for making it out here on a little bit of snowstorm. And we got Josh Swisher, another close friend here from Northface Construction. He's been running Northface for, you're double digits now, yeah? How many years? 14 years. And still very focused drive to grow and grow his team. So thank you both for coming on here. The topic we're going to talk about here is going to be how parenting has impacted you. So your parenting that you grew up with and how that's impacted you in your professional lifestyle. And then Todd, how the individuals who you work with, how their parenting shows impact on kind of how they handle themselves day to day. Sound like a good topic? Great. So first
that was
off,
a rhetorical question, I'm pretty sure.
So first off, first question, how many inches of snow do you think we're going to get today?
Why do I care?
I don't know.
Won't change what I'm doing.
Are you asking me that question?
Yeah, no, we're
2 inches.
okay.
I don't know.
Is this like a gamble?
We don't have to put money on it. But
I don't even know what the fork. I didn't even know
I'm
it was
going.
supposed to snow
I
today.
didn't look. I'm going for 1.8.
Oh my. We're getting it down to the...
All right, so let's
I'm gonna
get
say-
back into it.
I'm gonna say an inch.
Great, an inch. So we're gonna pass the mic to Todd now. So we've got an inch, 2 inches, and I've got 1.8. So at the end of the day, we'll post on the podcast like which one.
Oh, okay.
We're going by Forest Lake, Minnesota, inches.
Do you have an official gauge out front?
My grandma lives just north a little bit, so I'm gonna ask her. That's the answer.
definitive answer.
Is she a trained weather spotter?
Yeah.
She's right usually, so I'm just gonna. Sheila's in charge. So Todd, tell us a little bit about what you do right now in your day to day, and then with some finesse, segue that into your upbringing and why that's brought you to where you're at.
Oh boy. Well, I work with people who are trying to pursue goals. I mean, that's really the simplest way to say that because it is varied among people. It relates to, well, I almost look at mentoring adults not all that differently than I do my kids. And it's not, I say that cautiously because it's not meant to be demeaning in any way. It's just that there are similarities. And I was brought up very hard. And I was a goer and a pursuer and get out of my way. Whatever you're doing, I'll beat you. And I was literally, I still am somewhat this way, very incapable of just being passive. I mean, if somebody runs up alongside of me, I start running. I mean, I'm not capable of not being, if you're shoveling dirt, I'm going to shovel more dirt than you are. I mean, that's how, and that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. But I was brought up hard. And the one thing that I figured out as a young adult early on is how all the things that were hard and very likely in my life, I thought, what did I do to deserve a lot of these things? I recognized that they were the things that made me capable beyond other people, where I would work harder, stay longer, move faster in almost every way because I had urgency and desperation because of the situations I was put in. And I recognized that those things were powerful and valid for other people. I also recognized in a lot of different people that if they had not had that, they didn't have the same sense of urgency. And
Interesting.
so my kids, I love my boys dearly. They're 36 and 37 years old now. And I always have, and I always did. but I was brutally hard on them, to the degree that other parents who didn't understand really thought that I had a screw loose. But I would always...
I mean, they might have been, might have
Might
been right.
Might have been right. But you know, in the end result, I'm different than the two of you, in that you're in your years of testing, and it's an incubator. You're trying to do the things that you're being told by others around you, and doing it in your own sense, with your own mind, and not knowing what the outcome is going to be. I'm now at the outcome. I'm past that. And I see what I did and what I didn't do. And I see what the results have been, good or bad. And I know that my kids are very, very capable and are everything that I would have wanted them to be. And I really believe that is because of the way that I treated them. And the one thing that I'll say about the brutally hard thing, I don't want to leave that hanging in the air. I would always, when I told them what I wanted them to do, and it's kind of like you guys when you walk out the door and I tell you, I want you to do this, and I know you're thinking to yourself, I don't know how the hell I'm going to do that. And my sense is, I don't really care. It's not my problem. Just make it happen. And I did that with my kids. And whenever I did that, I would see that in their eyes, that they were, like a scared animal, not knowing how in the world that's going to happen. And then I would always meet their gaze, and I would look at them and I'd say, I love you, honey. And I'd hug them, and they would perform. And that was the most powerful thing that I learned about raising kids.
Interesting. So you had to learn that yourself.
Yeah, because I didn't get it at all. My father was not that at all. My father was the hard part, but he wasn't the other part.
Gotcha. Josh, how about...
What was the original question?
Yeah,
Can you restate?
Again, so tell us who you are, what you do, and then, again, with finesse, segue that into the parenting style you grew up with and how that's brought you to where you're at today.
This is something actually I've thought about recently, so it's a good topic. So I own a construction company that focuses on roofing, siding, windows, gutters, the whole exterior portfolio. I started in the exterior business at age 15 for my neighbor because I didn't have a driver's license, and he had a business. He needed a gopher tarp dragger. So I got a job with him and was paid cash, and then here I am, how many years later?
Yep, just fast forward and boom, you're there.
Fast forward 18 years later, here I am. So that's what we do. That's the work that we do. How it kind of segues in is just like what leads a person to pursue entrepreneurship, right? Like it's the belief of that there's more, and like really having that instilled in you that you're capable of whatever you can believe, and having those moments in time like Todd was talking about, of challenges that you were faced with and overcame independently, which then slowly builds and works that muscle to grow up. And like I said, I thought about this recently, and I'm like, why am I where I am? And why am I who I am? And I think it's because you think about our personalities and where they come from. They're all a basis of stuff, of interactions, emotions that we tie to ourselves, and then we build off of one thing after another. And you say, I like this, I don't like that. Well, where does that come from? That comes from an experience that you had something, a positive or negative, that now you assigned to your personality, and you decided, I want to go this way, right? Depending on the trauma or positivity that you've had in those moments. And I think back to, I'll bring it back home, I think back to being at a young age, and there's some key moments that by divine intervention, by intentionality, by my grandfather, my father, family, opportunities, there's some key moments that really made me be who I am and where I am now. And one of which is just being young and wanting more. Like, we didn't have a lot. I mean, we never were without in my house, but I always wanted more. I was like, when I was old enough to understand that I didn't have all the things that all the other kids had, I didn't have the toys. I didn't have, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like I wanted that. I wanted a dirt bike.
You saw duality.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of duality. I'm like, I had these clothes, and I only could get so many clothes, and there was a budget for Christmas, and there was everything. But these other kids, they got all this other stuff. Well, it's just not possible. So I'm like, but then the intentionality, the moment that I'm talking about is, I'd be at my grandparents' house. My grandpa, James Swisher, he gave me opportunities to fill that gap. Started with, hey, will you go and clean the gutters out for me? would you do that for me? And yeah, sure. And I'd go clean the gutters. I'd go rake the leaves in the whole backyard, the whole half acre. I'd rake that all up. And then he'd sit me down and very intentionally in his office. He'd have his pipe that he'd be smoking, his Morse code stuff, like he was a World War II vet, like, and he would sit me down and ask me how it went. And then he would make a show of writing a check and make it out to Joshua C. Swisher. And he'd say, thank you. And he'd slide that check over to me, $20, $10, $5, $50. And it turned into these moments where I, like, holy crap, what other things can I do here? And I come to Grandpa, the paint on the refrigerator there is looking pretty bad on this old GE fridge. I'm learning how, in shop class, how to do auto body. Would you want me to restore it? How much would it cost you to get the materials? Oh, well, it's free. I could steal them from school. So, I mean, just, reality. But, like, small things. It started, like, planting that creativeness of, like, how can I get what I want? And then, like, doing these small little steps and reversing it. It's just those small little things, right? So then I had the consistency. I was able to buy my own paintball gun. I bought my own cell phone myself. I couldn't have a cell phone until I bought one. I had $350 that I bought when I was 12 years old, 13 for a Razor. I was super excited about that. It was cool then. Everyone else had one.
Like did you forget it this morning? Oh, you meant
Razor?
the phone. Yeah. Sorry.
But I think about that, and then I also think about, like, some of the other moments in time too, in regards to the intentionality and, I don't know. There's just those moments in time that, like, I think back, like, right there, and, like, always out of love and, like, mentorship. And this man, very, very wise, very, very, and you can see where my dad is the way he is. A lot of love, a lot of care,
patience,
and a lot of patience and intentionality with things. And, like, my parents would always say they're proud of me and that they believed I could do anything I set my mind to. But then they couldn't give me everything, so it was up to me to kind of fill that gap of what I could aspire. So I believed, and, like what you mentioned, like having that belief and seeing yourself as something further and farther than what you are. And I'm either too stupid to know that, like, it's, like the dumb enough to really believe it or smart enough to really believe it. I don't know which one it is, right? Like, but you have to believe it. And then, like, creating that and realizing I'm here and then just knowing. I
think the things you described, those steps you just brought up, are what led you to the fact that you did believe in yourself. You were gaining belief in yourself with every one of those things as you accomplished.
Yeah. And it was intentional. Now, looking back at it, and now, like I said, I thought about this recently. Like, what is this? That these things, these little conditioning, little things.
Well, those are the things that people take away from their children under the auspice that they are helping them.
Tell me more about it.
I want to help them. I don't want them to have to go through what I went through. It's a colossal mistake. I'm going to pay for my kids' college. I'm going to buy them a car when they graduate from high school because nobody ever did that for me. That's a horrible idea because those things of what Josh is saying, okay, if Josh wanted to have a nice car when he graduated from high school, he figured out that he had to go out and accomplish it himself. To take that away from him, if he had not had that need and developed the muscle to believe that he could accomplish it and then go through the things that he did that developed his self-esteem and his healthy ego, if you had taken that away and just given him the car, he wouldn't be the same person. So every time you're giving people things, you're taking away their ability to develop themselves and become strong, confident, capable, self-starting, healthy ego people. Yeah. And that's why wealthy people have the biggest challenge raising good kids. And yet poor kids dream of being that way, and they don't understand that it's a curse. It's a curse.
Fascinating.
Yeah. You take somebody's need away and you rob them of the self-esteem that they would otherwise build through going through that process.
And why do people do it? Because they want to feel that they accomplished.
And don't forget me when I die.
Yeah,
don't forget me. It's about them.
Yeah, it's about them, not the actual person.
And it's like everything else. I like to say the sky is blue, meaning that it just is this way, and don't waste time fighting it. Just understand it and then know how to navigate it. That's the way people are. And you have an innate desire to be that way, and your ability to temper that in yourself, that's really self-discipline. Because the easiest thing in the world, when you've got a substantial amount, to be able to just do things for people and then feel good about yourself. I mean, the reality is, I can tell you that there's a lot of people who will take everything you're willing to give them, and hate you all the while for being in a position to do it.
Yeah.
Damn.
And so it's not helpful to give people things, even as much as they might think that they want it, kids specifically, because you really hurt them. And that is the one thing that I believe so strongly. And everybody out there, I mean, not everybody, but most, they do have a desire to do that. And Josh is correct, because they are really doing it for themselves. Well, I gave my kid this. My kid goes to, when you go to the neighborhood party or whatever the hell it is, and the parents are talking about where their kid is going to college. That's not about the kid.
No.
That's about them. And I'm paying for my kid's college, and they'll bitch about it to everybody because they want everybody to know. It's my adage: people buy a lake home not because they want a lake home, because they want to tell other people they got a lake home. People want to do this for their kids. They don't want their kids to forget it. But now their kids at the age of 40, although they've got this expensive education, are almost incapable of everything. My adage: they don't know the business end of a screwdriver. It's hilarious. So
yeah. when you're trying to bring the best out of somebody and like kind of a child, so you leave breadcrumbs for them, kind of like what you went through, but how do you do that but still make sure they maintain like a certain standard or level of excellence? Because I know for me, like, I rushed through like everything, and I still do sometimes. And what you said, tempering, that's what my dad tried to like not beat out of me, but like tried to beat out of me from the time I was like 2 probably. And my grandfather as well. So like, but they did it, like you said, with love the whole time. So how do you be firm but soft at the same time?
I'm going to defer to him on that one.
Yeah, I mean, you've been around the block a couple times.
You've seen it from
I don't
start to where they are.
I don't think it is that. I think you're firm all the time. I think it's that you show them that you love and care about them. You don't. There's a dichotomy for sure, because too much is too much, too little is not enough, and that's the way it is in everything in life. Details matter. So if I were to try to say some of the things that I've said to both of you guys in a confrontational way, it would be like me walking up to you and smacking you in the chest, and immediately you come back ready to brawl, right? That doesn't work. But how do you inspire a person to want to do these things? To what is too much is too much. And I just truly believe that when you give them the impression that you know and expect that they can do this, that they'll figure it out, and they don't want to let you down. They care enough about what you think that they don't want to let you down. You get to be fairly hard, and too much is too much. If you piss people off, then you're giving them an excuse to walk away, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for an excuse to say, well, that person's a jerk or something like that they can walk away as an excuse. So you can't give them that excuse, but you can't let off on the gas of the pressure.
Gotta keep your foot on the gas.
Yes.
Gas man.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's some intentionality and genuineness, being authentic to like that, like the balance of love. Like one mistake and thing that I'm learned and continually learn is like you have to have it in your heart, like that you out of love and intentionality, not I'm going to do this and do these tactics to get what I want, out of it. Like as a leader, like a boss, I can't say and be manipulative and have an underlying motivator. This is actually for me and my ego and my well-being. It has to be like they have to win first, and like they have to be rewarded and recognized. I don't know if that fits.
Yeah.
But I think also like with the kids too, like that love. You got it. I mean, you can't fake it. Who doesn't love their kid? You know what I mean? Like there is no faking that. So the genuineness is there automatically. So then, and as long as you're making sure that they know that continually. I mean, there isn't a day that goes by that I don't hug, kiss, and tell my kids I love them at least 2, 3, 4 times a day.
Yeah.
But,
And you can't do that enough. That part, you cannot do that enough. And the other thing is, as they get older, guys, you cannot back away from that.
Yeah.
You know, if you have young daughters and, you know, they get to be 14 years old and now all of a sudden they have breasts and you feel uncomfortable hugging them, that's a huge mistake. And when you have boys, never stop hugging them. They are becoming young men. And it's the natural tendency to want to say, oh, that's not this. We don't do that anymore. Oh, no, do it more. Yeah. Do it. If anything, do it more, because everybody needs that. You know, they need that. And you can't shy away from that caring and affection. And the way that you speak, this is a huge point. Your ability to communicate is something that for the rest of your life, you want to become a student of. And not just, and it's the nonverbal and the verbal. The way that you communicate to people is the most powerful thing that you must learn as a parent, in business, friendships, relationships of all kind. The way that you communicate, your ability to say a thing and their perceived understanding of it is what you wanted them to get. That sounds like it's such a simple thing, and it's so not. Your posture and your wishy-washy or matter-of-fact way is so powerful. And you know, your kids are watching you. Mm-hmm. I mean, and a lot of people are frustrated with that because they want to be able to let their guard down. And the reality is you don't get to do that because they're watching every move. Whether you know it or not, you're always being watched. And you are telling them something. You want to make your kids successful. The most valuable thing in the world that you can possibly do is to become successful yourself, because that speaks volumes compared to anything you'll ever say to them. And if you never give them anything, but if you bring them up with the intention that they know their mom and dad, they know their mother and dad's failures, because we all have them, right? We're all a mess. Mm-hmm. But despite that, we were able to succeed. They come to the belief that they can too. And without any help financially, they grow up with the belief that if my father and mother can do it, then obviously I can do it too. And it's the most valuable thing that you'll ever give your parents. The sad part is, for parents who didn't bring their kids up that way, it's equally true, only in the opposite direction. Mm. Nobody else I know did this. My friends, my family, my parents. Why should it ever work for me? And they'll endeavor into things, whether they know it or not, with an expectation of failure before they even start, because they've not seen the success. They've not built their ego. They've not compounded successes over time. They've not seen success in front of them. You know, somebody down the street, it's not the same thing, because then you make excuses for why they succeeded and why you never can. But when it's right in front of you and it's a part of who you are, you'll be successful. Not because mom and dad give you $1 million or give you a business or sent you to college, because your expectation is that, because you've seen it manifest itself right in front of you. Most powerful thing you can do. So you go out and succeed in the world. That's the most powerful thing you do with your kids.
Damn. We probably just wrap it up with that then. No, wow. So ego management then. So this is going to hurt when I say it, but it's the most true thing ever. So my dad used to tell me that, and now it's kind of funny, but he used to tell me that my head was so big I couldn't fit through the door because I had an absolutely massive ego. And it ended up leaving people in this guy's a jerk thought process very regularly. So was there anything that your father or grandfather did to help you regulate that, or did you even struggle with that? And then for you, like, what advice would you give to Josh and I as we raise our kids, and anybody else out there for that matter?
It's another one of those dichotomy things, because without it, I did a radio show where I talked about the fact that a salesperson is somebody who's a super salesperson, somebody who's super successful. Oftentimes, they have perceptively to the outside world, they are arrogant, they are asinine, and they have this incredible drive and desire to succeed. Many times, that is made manifest by the fact that they're insecure and they have to prove to the world, you heard me say this at BNI, that they are not the piece of shit that they think everyone else believes they are. And by God, they're going to prove everybody wrong. Now, that type of person often is a great salesperson. Sometimes they're a great entrepreneur, and that's what drives them. But they burn people out. That type of person, not surprising that they burn relationships out, that they've been married and divorced 2-3 times sometimes, because they are that. And so if you take them to a psychiatrist and say, we're going to work on this challenge you've got with your insecurities, you don't need to prove to the world all these things. And so let's say that you actually could fix them. Yeah, but now they're not a super salesman anymore. Now they don't have that drive anymore. So the very thing that makes people successful, that drive for never-ending pursuit versus accomplishment. Because most of the people out there are going to say, hey, why can't you just be happy? You're here now. You're good, right? And for the person who is the entrepreneur who's driven, you're happy for all of about 60 seconds once you accomplish a goal, right?
Yeah. Sounds about right.
And you're immediately on to the next thing. And the rest of the world is looking at you thinking that there's something wrong with you. And if not for that, fix that in them, now they stop succeeding. So which one do you want?
Oh.
Right? Yeah. And so it really is a challenge to control that. And again, language, knowing who you can talk to about these things, who will understand and be helpful and motivational to you, and who others will say the exact same thing, and it will be an utter detractor and be an irritant to them. You have to be smart about that. Having a healthy ego is a very powerful thing. Having the ability to temper that around the people who you don't want to present it to, that is a discipline that you have to develop in yourself, because it's there. You don't want it to go away. You just have to know when to turn it off and turn it on.
That's interesting.
What's interesting?
Oh, just this whole dialogue.
But don't take it away. See, don't take it away.
I'm going to think out loud a little bit here on that topic, because there is that aspect of the ego, like that is a driver. Like for me, I think I've talked to you about it. Like numbers were a representation of my self-worth.
It was a scoreboard.
It's a scoreboard to know how, can I swear?
Yes.
How fucking awesome I am at what I do. You know, and that is the ego, right? But the dark side, like he said, is inside. There's a blackness that you're just trying to fill that void with these things, which are all superficial. And it's like what we talked about before. It disassociates from people, and then people see that, and it turns it off to them. Like
say that to your employees, and they see you as arrogant and greedy.
Yeah.
So you better know when to turn that off.
Well, and I think it goes, turning it off, but also I think there's a healthy way to relearn on how to, I mean, it comes down to like, you know, you got to love yourself for who you are and your mistakes and flaws and recognize them, you know, and understand what those dark sides are, because then that's a why behind of like when to temper and when to allow, when to temper, when to allow, is like being conscious and aware of where you are on that spectrum at any moment, like you said. But like that takes time. Like you have to be in the moment, self-aware. And for a lot of us, it takes crash and burn into a wall, because it's like what they say, like nothing changes until it hurts so bad you're forced to change. I've been there, right? And I learned from that. And that's where like the way I'm talking now, oh my gosh, 2 years ago, there's no way I would have talked like this 2 years ago, because I was a stupid idiot and just full ego driven, numbers driven.
You'll say the same thing 2 years from now.
Exactly. But that's the thing. I'm okay with that, because I'm okay. I know I'm making mistakes, and I'm going to continue to make mistakes. And that's the process.
But the looking back allows for the next steps to happen without repeating the errors you went through. So without flipping it around and looking the other way, it's hard to make course adjustments, right?
Well, that's where the tapering of the ego. Like, turn around, you make mistakes. A lot of people let their ego run out wild and just, no, F you, I don't make mistakes, I'm the shit. You know what I mean? And that's where that whole being on the other side of the spectrum can really burn you and burn relationships, and I don't know. Hope.
You know, if you're trying to motivate a team, you have to start with the idea that every human being is most interested in themselves and their own position. And that's not a bad thing. It just is. Blue sky again. So what are the things that will motivate and animate that person that gets you where you want them to go? And how do you craft that dialogue with them to accomplish that, right? So I want them to do and to become this thing, but that's not necessarily what they want.
Yeah.
So how do we present this to them in a way that gets them what they want while going in the direction I want? I mean, that's carefully crafted words and dialogue for sure.
Yes. Understanding where they're coming at from too is interesting. I was at a training a few weeks ago, and the guy, he runs a big heating air conditioning company in California. I mean, wildly successful. And one of the things that he was sharing is like, and I hadn't even heard the words talked about, but it's interesting you talk about like where are people, and if you look at it from the psychology standpoint, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? What is the baseline? Safety, shelter, sustenance. I don't know. I'm going to butcher it, but then there's the next ones, and then there's self-actualization, right? So correct me if I'm wrong. If we apply that into this, like the awareness of an individual, recognizing where they are at, just like you said in the beginning, like you have an acute understanding when you're talking to people and how they project and how they say things, where they are at, maybe in that process. So you're able to, over time, to meet and understand and curate your dialogue in a way to meet them where their mind is at and guide them to the next stage. So I don't know. That's just an interesting thing that I was remade aware of, like the psychology of that. And if we want to throw some technical stuff at the conversation.
Meet them where the mind is at. That's fascinating. How would you coach somebody to develop that ability to see what's going on with the other person, even when it's not like they're wearing
like what we do?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like there's a sign that they're hanging on there like, this is what happened today. My kid puked on my shoe when I was trying to leave, so now I'm running behind, and that's why I'm a little bit boiled, you know? Like, it would be convenient if people had that, but they don't. So for somebody who is unaware of that, or your children, like, how do you cultivate that? What are the steps?
You've become really conscious of details. So much of our conversation with people is frivolous, and people are, it's ironic, able to carry on a frivolous conversation, and they're sleepwalking. You know, they're not even listening to what they're saying or what you're saying. It's just like asking somebody about the weather or the Minnesota Twins. I mean, it's just like sleepwalking. And when you actually start asking and focusing on details, they perk up because they're not accustomed to that. They're accustomed to this, surface conversation that doesn't delve deep. And when you start delving deep, you immediately get people's attention, and apparently you care more by concerning yourself with the detail. I mean, a business owner sometimes has a natural tendency to just say, shut up and get things done. I don't care about your problems. Just shut up and go to work. And if that worked, that would be great, but it doesn't work. And so how are you going to talk to your kids about the details in their life when, you're busy? Well, we're all busy. Who gives a crap if you're busy? I mean, people always throw that out. I'm busy. Who gives a shit? We're all busy, right? Who cares? The reality is that when you start asking kids about the finer details about what's going on in their lives, all of a sudden you develop a deeper relationship with them. And you do that with everybody. You can have a 10-minute conversation that is a deep conversation when you endeavor into the details into their lives. Start asking them. They say something and ask them more detail about that thing. You don't need to go on to 10 different things on the surface. Let's get to the one thing in detail. And that's where all the magic is in everything, is in the detail. So in every conversation, it's back to my same point. Educating yourself on the way you talk to people, the way that you speak to them. And you're right, come to them where they are. But how will you do that if you don't ask them detail to determine where they are?
Yeah. Discovery questions is kind of like even in a sales process.
Yeah.
You want to bring it back to business, right? Discovery questions, understanding their family, occupation, recreation, motivation. We call it the form in our sales process. It's like, how do you create a genuine connection as fast as possible to understand?
So what are the things that you do at Northface to cultivate that within your team?
That's a good question. trying to get better at that right now. There's room
all.
improvement. I think one thing that this is extremely recent, the last company meeting, and this comes from that, like, I've always had trouble of like trying to motivate and get people bought into the goals, right? Because number one, they were unrealistic and came from Josh's little La La Land of visions, right? Number two is I didn't understand how to like take the time. I just figured like growth means good. Yay, everyone wins, right? But like I didn't understand how to tie it to them. And you just got to slow down and be deliberate and ask the right questions. So like one thing tactically and just organizationally that we're doing is, we just said, I told the whole team last company meeting, I said, we have goals that we want to hit, but those goals mean nothing if it doesn't help you accomplish your goals. So like what we are doing is I sent out this thing called a My Why exercise, and it ties into what I talked about last week at BNI, if you were there, is none of these goals mean shit unless it's helping people meet their why of what really motivates them and what really satisfies their needs. So like what I did is I put that out. We're going to take that information. We're going to get to know our people a lot more so that we can help them reach their goals. Because then how we're going to align it to the company is like, here's your role, your responsibility. Here's your goals, your dreams and aspirations. Now here's the reward system structure and the scoreboard at which you are going to be measured against for that. So we can be in alignment. Your spouse can understand this. You can explain it easily. And the top 3 things in your day-to-day thing that are going to drive the needle forward for you to reach your goals. It doesn't matter, like, say you grew up when your grandparents had a cabin and it got passed down to someone else in the family. But you grew up with that experience and has a lot of key memories of love, like camaraderie, family. And maybe right now in your role, you can't afford that. And you want that for your kids. You want to have those memories with your kids. Well, how can I tie that now into your day-to-day actions? And I can help you accomplish that goal. Now, I know your why, like why you want to do it. Now, here's the path on how to get you from here to there. You need to do this, and I am now I have the information to coach you, meet you where you are, and guide you and hold you accountable to your goals. This isn't company goals. This is your goals, because it is about you. And like focusing I'm learning how to turn the focus on the people and the team more than the organization, because ultimately they are the organization and they need all win. And when they win, the company wins, and we all can celebrate together and grow and create abundance. Like for me, my main goal now is to grow abundance and provide the opportunity for all the people that at least the opportunity and guide to get to where they want to go. And that if that means they graduate out at some point and go start their own, great. That means that I spread what I was sent here on earth to do. If it means that I'm going to help them, they're going to lead the company, great. If they were going to go and be a better father, better wife, better husband, whatever. Like I'm just trying to change how we do things.
Same.
Not there yet, but progress, not perfection. So
how do you, when you're talking about change within an organization, it's going to happen. And early on, it has to happen quickly, right? Because you got to make 1,000 decisions a day sometimes. But when it gets to the point where you've got a team built and now things can't change all the time, because now that creates a ton of confusion. What type of recommendation would you give to somebody in their business as they're kind of transitioning from, I'm just going to make crap up and do whatever the heck I want whenever, to control?
Okay, control.
Like instead of 1,000, maybe 1 or 2 decisions a day.
Oh, okay.
And not like, we're going to do this, and then next week we're going to do that.
I don't know how to answer that. That's a...
Tactically, or are you talking like tactically and like
just
step by
some, maybe
step,
just some things that
like
you've seen.
Implementation
maybe just
stages.
Yeah, implementation maybe.
Well,
It really comes down to, maybe I'll answer my question. I think it comes down to actually like thinking about where you're trying to go, and understanding your business and what's kind of within reach, but still maybe a stretch. And how do you do that without making it like, I kind of lost where I was. We're going to have to cut this.
That's okay.
Well, so
So it's going to be something.
It's always, it's always focused on other people's goals, for sure. And I think what you're trying to say is you've got big goals, but how do you not lose people in the process? Is that what you were trying to say?
You nailed it, Todd.
Yeah. So you bring it down to the things that are meaningful to them. And I'll go back to the detail of conversation. Imagine a chief executive officer who is managing a business with 10,000 employees, and he'll go out on the line every morning and he'll have conversations with people. And when he enters into the conversation, it will be, how is your daughter doing with her dance? And immediately, in a short period of time, there's leverage in that conversation because of the details. And he endears himself to those people who now don't want to let him down. Entrepreneurs, because of their psychological makeup, tend to be attracted to shiny rocks where they change direction too quickly. And you got to keep the main thing, because you're confusing people when you're not doing that. And so you have to do that. And so every time you're talking to one of your team members who you're trying to grow to another level, to buy back your time, so to speak, you're always bringing the conversation back to them and their goals every single time. And those are the things you have to have on top of mind. And every time that they're accomplishing something in the way that you are hopeful that they will, you never-endingly are complimenting them. There's never such a thing as over-the-top compliments. And even when the individual who you're doing it to perceives it as over-the-top, come on, right? This is just, come on. You don't have to keep doing that. And they still love it. Even when you do that, they still love it. And what you're really doing is you're reinforcing that thing that they're doing and causing them to want to do it more for that adulation and gratification of getting that compliment. And not only that, when you're doing that in front of other people. So you're always focusing on their goals. You have your big goals, and your big goals are too grandiose for each individual who doesn't see the whole picture. And if you try to present that to them, they one, don't see it, and two, it doesn't enthuse them at all. You got to stick it to this part, their KPI. Now you're back to traction. What is their number? Their number is, this is what you've done in the past, and every day you come to work trying to create a personal best, a PR on this 1 to 3 KPIs for an individual. Somebody who's on a management team, 6 KPIs. But if you get too diversified amongst all the different components, you and you alone are the one who has to handle those things. And as a result of handling all of those things, you need to be capable of summarizing them into very small bites that give you the information that you need to go forward. The detailed bites go to each individual as you go, and then stick to that. Stick to that with that person. When you walk up to that person and you say, how's it going? Don't just say, how's it going? Say, how are these KPIs that are their part of the equation? How are those things going? How have you had a really good day in the last week or so? What were those numbers? What are you hopeful that the numbers will be today, or this week, or this month, and on and on and on? Because now you're getting more detail. They know that you actually are paying attention to them and that you care, and they don't want to let you down, and they perform.
It's good.
Intentionality behind it all, and that's something I think, like, as shiny object syndrome entrepreneurs, slow down and take the time to think these things through.
Keep the main thing. Stay with it long enough to enjoy the success of it. You keep changing directions, you never get to enjoy the success. And that's a huge problem for human beings in general who don't have healthy egos. They've tried things and they've changed direction and walked away before they ever got to enjoy the success. And in short order, they start coming to new things with the expectation of failure because nothing else has ever worked out before anyway. So why should this be any different? As opposed to someone who does a thing, struggles and endeavors to the point where they succeed at it. Now they go to the next thing and they're anticipating success because why should this be different than the last 3 things that I've done? But if your kids, if you allow them to walk away before they have had success at something, you are programming their mind to become okay with that. And that's a huge problem. It's not over until I win, has to be the metaphor. And so when you're moving a team and you're changing direction, and you personally aren't enjoying the benefit of the success of the goal. You're not allowing them to enjoy the benefit. You literally are programming your whole team not to succeed. It's a dangerous thing.
Well, and that's where the discipline comes in. Self-discipline is like the tool for freedom as an entrepreneur. I'm learning that one.
Yeah.
Don't have it mastered by any means. I'm a novice.
So let's talk about networking when it comes to growing a business and the connections that you have. What time we got right now? That clock looks accurate. 12:15. All right, everybody's clock's at the same time. There's one right behind you guys. It's fine.
What time is it? Yeah, man.
So the developing a network. So for you, Todd, you've had years and years and years of doing that. And Josh, you and I are kind of at a similar spot. So tell me about some of the things entrepreneur or business owners should think about when they're going about developing a network. Even like, let's talk two scenarios. One, just getting into business, trying to grow a network. Two, they have connections and they're trying to go deeper. Rock, paper, scissors.
Sure, I'll start flapping my lips here. So let me just clarify your question.
Perfect.
There's two thought processes. Number one, like if you're further along and deepening the relationship, and number two, like if you're just starting out. Is that clear? Is that what you're asking? Or
I asked it the other way, but yeah.
But whatever.
Yes.
Still same
Correct.
dichotomy there. I'd say starting out, we'll start with that, the broad-based approach. And I'm not saying I know this. I'm not saying I'm successful, nor is this correct, but my perspective is like people got to know what the hell you do. So you got to get out there and be consistent with your message and put it out there. But I also would take the time to not waste your efforts in places where you're not going to get a return. You know, and I think number one, going to people who have done it before and finding out what works and actually listening and doing that will guide you in the right place. Because a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to go network. Well, you know what? You can network the shit out of your life and be wasting time and progress away from your goal with people who literally it's not worth it. And that's not because they aren't like a worthwhile person to spend time with and whatever. But I mean, are you really committed to the goal, or you just want to have friends? And if you want to have friends, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with networking to have friends and filling that part of your bucket in your life. But if your goal is professional and to get to here and here and here, you need to be very diligent with your time, because you know what? If you're wasting it here, that's taking out of another bucket. And that might be family. That might be your own well-being. That might be that stuff. So if you care enough about your family and everyone, you're going to be laser focused on taking the time to think about where the levers are. Like Todd always says, like, what's the biggest lever you can pull in regards to deepening them? I'm going to relay that one more towards you, just because I want to I'm going to hot potato over to him because I want to think about it a little bit more.
Well, I think you have to start with the idea that your success is related to your network and your relationships. If you want to get things done, you have to have as much as what I get. So your answer and the way that you answered is a very goal-oriented answer, because I'm here because I want to create more business and I want to succeed. There's nothing wrong with that, because that's the overriding thought. But the sky is blue in terms of human beings who do not think that way. And deep connections are what gets you more with those relationships. Yeah. I marvel when I sit in my office, and both of you have seen this, where in the middle of the day, I'll pick up the phone and call people who you both know have gatekeepers. They've got receptionists, other people answering the phone. And in the middle of the day, I'll call this person who has 15 employees, and they pick up the phone in the middle of the day when they see me call in. Wow, what is that? So that better not be a frivolous relationship, because otherwise that thing's either going to go to the receptionist or voicemail, and somebody's going to take a message. But they don't do that. So how do you accomplish that level of relationship within your network? And that's a very different thing than I'm just trying to have impact with as many people as I possibly can to get as much business as I possibly can. And again, I want to make the point. I understand that, because it is what you want. It is what you want. But if you go about it that way, it doesn't work very well. So you've got to develop strong relationships in a short period of time. So when you talk to people, it's back to that same point. You have to have a deeper conversation with them so that they acknowledge you as something different, something unique. if you're just one of many, it doesn't mean as much. And as much as you'd love to say that that's a pure professional and business relationship, there really is no such thing. It's impossible for it not to be somewhat personal to the individual. And so you're always looking to build connections and relationship with people, and you do it in the way that you pay attention to what's going on with them in their lives. You know, do you like to go camping? Do you play golf? Does your daughter compete in swimming and your son play baseball? How are they doing? These things that you know, I don't have time for that, is kind of the way some people will say. I mean, you hear somebody who goes to a business networking meeting and they'll say, you know, I'm going to try this for 3 or 4 months, and if I don't see any ROI, I'm going to quit. Well, then you should have never started in the first place, because it doesn't work that way. It's not an infomercial, I hate to tell you. And until you have some degree of relationship, you're not going to get the results that you want. Having said that, how do you get the most relationship in the shortest period of time? And your direction in doing that is finer details in knowing a person at a level that other people do not. And so you're seeking to do that. Both of you guys have heard my spiel about how I will meet with a person, and I will take 3 pages of notes and write a description, a referral letter. Who does this, right? Who does this? And I'm not trying to brag about myself. Nobody does that. People give you a business card, and as they're giving you the business card, they're simultaneously pulling back and saying, now listen, if this doesn't work out, I don't want it to reflect on me. I don't really know this person that well. Well, don't give me the fucking business card in the first place.
It's a pump fake at that point.
Yeah. But when you take the time, like sit down for 2 hours and take 3 pages of notes about this person's family, background, everything about them, you know them on a deeper level. Then I write a letter about this person describing who they are, how I know them, and why they're uniquely qualified to do this. And you hand that to people, and they're like, oh my God. You know, no longer do they say, I've got 3 other people who do this, like you're in competition with those 3 other people. Now you've just handed them a piece of gold that lets you know that person in a way that nobody else has done, and you just immediately change that relationship. So when I do that 3-page thing, and then I write that letter, then I send it to the person, and I say, I want you to know that when I refer other people to you, I'm going to be giving this to people, and I want you to edit it and make sure that I'm not misrepresenting anything in here. And when you give it to them, they are almost always, without exception, going to say, oh my goodness, you got all this information at our last meeting? Whoa. And then you refer that new person to them with that letter, and you blind carbon copy the person, and they feel like, this is the greatest referral I've ever gotten in my entire life. I got to send this person more people so they can bolster my credibility with every person I send to them. Because now it's about them. It's always about them, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That's how you do it. Yeah. And you do it, and it doesn't take longer, because the reality is most of the time that you're spending with them is frivolous and meaningless. Mm-hmm. So the fact that this takes longer in a short period of time doesn't matter, because you've already spent so much wasteful time with them that this is actually leveraged time to do that.
You know, I'll go back to like kind of where I started off, and I agree exactly with Todd. It's like, and what I was kind of getting at now that I've thought about like the depth things and heard your thoughts on it, I would say I agree with what I said earlier in regards to be very, you know, success leaves clues. If you're starting out fresh, find out where that success lies. But then once you've identified like where you want to spend your time, do it, what he said. Like, make those deep relationships, because that is really what like it comes from. So I agree. Like, I don't want to sound like, you know, transactional, but like you got to be diligent with your time. If you're
That's
starting
the
fresh,
leverage.
If you're starting fresh with in an industry that you have no clue about anything about, find someone to help you not waste time and where to go, and then identify and then leverage it in the way that
you guys both belong to a networking group with 100 people in it. That's insane. So are you supposed to do 100 one-to-one meetings to meet all these people over the course of a year?
It's not possible.
And if it is, it's frivolous anyway. Wouldn't you much rather do 100 meetings, but do 10 meetings with 10 individuals who have the greatest potential for you, and build strong relationships with those people? That makes infinitely more sense, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's that.
Deep. All right, now you guys get to ask me a question, and then we're gonna wrap up with my final question to each of you that I'm not telling you yet. You guys are so serious.
I'm just trying to think.
I wanted to say something else that you talked about or asked Josh about, and I want to say this, focusing on other people's goals. Do you remember, Matthew, when we talked and I figured out that Monica's primary goal was that she wanted her house? She wanted to get a new house.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she wanted that. And so literally from then on out, every time I met with them until we accomplished it, I stood on that thing. And so where before she was, it isn't that she was never not interested in the business, because she was, but she took on a whole new perception of things when she understood that that was going to get her to her primary goal of getting her house. And it changed the relationship that I had with Monica, because she knew that I cared about helping her get what she wanted. So when you think about trying to motivate your team, think about that.
That's good.
Sorry.
No, that's good. So you're not asking me a question? Is that
No,
your
I'm
answer?
waiting for him to do it first so I can.
I'm thinking, and I was listening so close, wasn't thinking.
You don't have
What are the things in your life that made you believe that you were capable of building a company to the size that you built at your early age?
What he said.
Ignorance.
There were things in your life that gave you the ability to believe that you could
My
do it.
father, my grandfather. Yeah. And then ignorance and impatience. Yeah.
So
Fascinating.
it's interesting. I'm going to compound what he said is in regards to just the comment on our character flaws are actually what drive us to, some of those
Fascinating.
things, ignorance, stuff like that. We're trying to fill that. But you know what? There's blessings in those things as well, right? I don't know.
No questions.
What do you think is your biggest barrier that's in the way of that next stage for you?
Probably ignorance and impatience. I don't know. Asking the right questions, slowing down, and even knowing what the hell's what the top is, like what's even possible. Yeah.
You know what I think is a profound thing is how much more capable everyone is than they believe they are. I can say in an unadulterated way that anybody I meet with, I can try to promote them into higher levels of potential than they believe they're capable of, because it isn't me just saying things.
Mm-hmm.
It's because I've learned that everybody is so much more capable than they think they are. They just need someone to believe in them. We as men very definitely need to be the heroes to our wives. There is nobody whose opinion matters more to us than our wives. It's also why they can piss us off the most, right? Somebody else could say it to me, I don't give a shit. She says it, and I'm ready to have a meltdown, because I care. So you have to use that to your advantage. Continually be trying to impress your wife, because it drives you. It drives you. When she says good things, you can conquer the world now. So when somebody believes in you, and I believe in people, I absolutely believe in what they're capable of, more than they do. But if you keep believing in them, they become a believer as well. And then they accomplish great things. And the sky's the limit. There is never a stop. You stop, God says when to stop. That's when he puts you on the ground. Until that time, you keep going. Because that's the joy.
Becoming your best self of what you've been designed to be. Pushing that.
Reaching your potential, your God-given potential. What is that? We don't know. Let's keep going and find out.
Yeah.
100% subscribe and agree with that.
This is good. I'm glad I hit you both with the blitzkrieg and showed up without knowing either of you were going to be here. So on to my last questions. So thank you again, both of you, for coming on to the Homegrown Hustle. Appreciate you driving out in the snowy weather here. So one question we ask everybody, I know I'm a ping pong ball and sometimes I'll ask a bunch of random questions, but this one's been very consistent the whole time. What does hustle mean to you in terms of business? And then maybe parenting if you want, but we don't have to get there yet.
I think it ties into exactly what we just left off on. Like, hustle is that continual pursuit of excellence internally. And let's go.
You gave me the book Insatiable, Never Stopping.
Relentless.
Yes.
Relentless.
Yeah.
Tim Grover.
Yeah, I love
That's what hustle means.
Yeah.
Never
That's
stop.
a good book.
It's the happiness of the pursuit.
You know what's funny about the hustle thing? I've talked about this before, but when I was a little boy, we were across the road in a field across the road from our house, and we owned 2 sections of land, so that's 2 square miles of land. But we were maybe 2 blocks from the farm, and we had 2 granaries that would put grain in, and our tractor had broken down, and my grandfather tried to take the nut off, and this big tractor, and he had a wrench that was not large enough, and he needed a breaker bar to be able to do it. I don't know, you guys, I'm sure know what that means.
Yep.
And it was a big ratchet, but the ratchet didn't have a large enough handle to be able to remove it, so he needed a breaker bar. And I think I could not have been more than 11 years old. And he told me that he needed me to get it, so I had to go back to the shed, to Quonset, and get it. And so I started walking. And my grandfather was absolutely my hero, more so my father than my father ever was. And I loved him to death. He was a wonderful man. But when it came to work, he was deadly serious. And I'm walking, kind of like, it's summertime, it's hot out, not paying attention. And my grandfather screamed at me. And it was not something I was accustomed to. He screamed at me. And he said, "Run, we're burning daylight. We don't have all day." And he just screamed at me, and it was just like, ugh, shuddering to me. And I ran all the way to the shed, and I got the breaker bar, and I ran all the way back. And from there on out, for the rest of my life, I have hustled. I never walk lackadaisically. I never do things lackadaisically. I'm always going as fast as I possibly can. Well, when I went into the military, I did that very same thing. Whatever it was that I needed to get, or whatever it was that had to be done, I was on it. The rule is do it now. Boom, right now. And that level of hustle has benefited me throughout my entire life. And so to me, that's what hustle means.
Internal
That's
sense
good.
of urgency at the core.
Sense of urgency. It's great. That's your answer. Perfect. It's very few words. I like that. I should work on that. Well, thanks again, gentlemen, for coming out. Appreciate you joining us on the Homegrown Hustle. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Hit the like, subscribe, all the things, depending which platform you're on. Thanks again for all the support. Have a fantastic day.
Thanks again for joining us on Homegrown Hustle. Our local business community thrives because of the brilliant leaders right here in our backyard. And it's been an absolute privilege to provide them with a platform to share their invaluable expertise. Stay tuned for more insight, wisdom, and inspiration from our local business champions. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Together, we'll continue to nurture and expand our homegrown success stories. Matt Eickman signing off until our next insightful episode.